Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP leveling build for VEX in Borderlands 4. This will be using the Bleed Incarnate build, which is extremely powerful because these Eldritch blasts can do a ton of damage, restore our bullets. We can also basically stay alive indefinitely due to the ability to regenerate our health by just using any type of physical attack. And this build is extremely powerful in a variety of different situations. It's also pretty fun to play, and you'll have no real issue with playing through the entire game utilizing this build. The reason that the VEX Incarnate build is really strong is because of the leeching attunement here and all the abilities to apply bleed. So we got things like the bloodletter as well, and we can actually get a lot of easy critical hits off utilizing this build, all the way down to vibe check, which changes Eldritch Blast into a charge attack, and this will actually allow it to ricochet between enemies, which is very powerful. And in addition to this, it also reduces the gun, basically reduces the amount of time that you have to wait before you can do an Eldritch Blast, because it doubles the cooldown reduction from gun damage, which is very strong. Now, VEX actually has a lot of kill skills, and you can actually further increase it with the grave power, adding a +3 to the max stack. So things that stacks of 3 can turn into 6. Increasing critical hit damage is really good. However, the leeching attunement is just so much better. Now, the way that attunements work, so with the leech attunement here, we're going to have to use a kinetic-based weapon, which means no elemental damage. She'll get lifesteal 10% and increase reload speed by 25%, and this will persist for 6 seconds after the attunement is switched. So I would recommend having swapping between your guns a few times and having at least 2 weapons that are kinetic based. Now this means that we can swap to a kinetic base, get the lifesteal off while we're using that weapon, and then swap it around to another one, and in 6 seconds we can empty the magazine. We then are able to get additional lifesteal on top of that, and then swap to another one back to kinetic, getting your lifesteal back. So that's kind of the way you want to play utilizing that skill, is having at least 2 kinetic weapons. Preferably I like 3, but at least 2. Next up, we get another few good kill skills, like gun damage increased by 20% here per stacks. This is really good again, because we can stack that even further with grave power. But I think it's better to go with the bloodletter. So gun and skill critical hits have a chance to apply bleed. And this is where the bleed aspect of this comes in. So dealing kinetic status damage over time for a duration, bleed is affected by status effect application chance. It is itself considered a status effect for the purpose of some other buffs and apply items in this build. So this gives a 50% chance, and it does ever increasing amount of damage, so we can get it to do 30% of gun damage per second, which is actually a pretty good amount. And duration of 4 seconds, you can stack it 20 times. So bleed on a build is actually crazy, because you can do a massive amount of damage. 20 stacks of 30% of your gun damage is crazy. So aim for critical hits, so you're going to recover your own health, apply bleed. And then for our first one here, we got the choice between the Geist Wave and the Energy Vampire. This one will make it so that you get a stack of Energy Vampire, increasing status effect damage, which again is counted as our bleed, so this will increase overall bleed damage. I personally prefer the Geist Wave here, because with this ability, it makes the target take 30% more damage. So you can blast away with this, and then the target's going to get an increased 30% damage, and that means more bloodletting damage. It's going to mean more damage from there. So this one actually is, I think, a little bit better than Energy Vampire in a vacuum. Again, I got to mention the Grave Implements is really good here. So if you want to take that, I like the bleed just a bit more better, but this works really well too. Now for the next skill tree here, again, Grave Power is such a crazy ability to have here, but we have the material components, which will increase our kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage, which is the bleed there. So these obviously are meant to all go together. Increase 35% damage is pretty crazy, and then an additional 20% bleed. So yeah, the bleed damage is 20% increased overall, massive boost. Now, we want to get the vibe check. This is such a powerful skill, because it can chain your Eldritch Blast and also give you increased cooldown on it. But I recommend playing around with each of these here. The Witchy Trigger Finger is really good, because whenever you deal damage with Eldritch Blast, it'll fully reload your gun. So you can imagine swapping around, you can actually refresh all your guns utilizing this. And this, if that's not good enough, it also gives you a stack of Witchy Trigger Finger, increasing gun damage by 15% per stack. So that's an extra 45% if you can get all the stacks. That is pretty crazy. So they last for 15 seconds. This is really good once you get down here. It's a little bit better than the Geist Wave. And then we get to choose our skills here for the levels 20 to 25, or 15 to 20, I should say. So we have Drink Full or Keen Mind. So this will increase the, basically, so our skill damage is the Eldritch Blast there, and this will increase critical hit chance against any part of enemies, which is nice to get a critical hit. However, this one I think is even better, Drink Full. So this gives you a plus 60% fire rate per stack, max 50 stacks. And this is every time you kill gun damage, you get a stack of this. So if you're shooting, your fire rate is going to keep increasing. That means you have more damage. That also means you have more ability to lifesteal. So your lifesteal goes up, and it increases your bleed, because that gives you more chance to apply bleed. this is actually pretty crazy overall. I think that's great. So then now from 20 to 25 levels, we got a few different ones. I like this personally, increasing our magazine size and gun switch size. Because again, I mentioned that we want to be switching these often, and that's kind of where this shines, because you can increase 30% switch speed and 30% magazine speed, which helps because we're going to be chewing through our ammunition so much quicker, applying bleed, and getting all these benefits here. So I think this is the best choice. And then we got this here, kill skill. Vex and our minions gain elemental damage for a duration, which gives you a little bit of elemental damage, or you get a chance to activate kill skills when critically hitting enemies. Now, we don't really have kill skills here, so that's not really best utilized. As mentioned, there's like kill skills there on the right-hand side. We're not going with those, so this one actually isn't a good choice. We could instead go against here and get the increased critical hit chance, or if you want to add elemental damage type for a duration, it's okay, but I think that it's better to put 2 points into here, taking our vibe check for the Capstone, which again, this makes Eldritch Blast critically, or bounce around to multiple enemies, which will also allow us to, whenever we hit an Eldritch Blast, we reload our gun. And that's crazy because it also boosts up our damage. So these two skills actually work really well together. Getting our boost to damage, critical, yeah, everything combines together. And then finally, we want to take the strike me down. This is really good. So whenever we would enter fight for your life, immediately get second wind and become invisible for duration, causing a phase explosion. Now we can go back through the skill tree here, which is actually pretty good because we could go with increasing the critical hit chance against any part of enemies, because that will allow us to apply bleed, because whenever we are applying bleed here, yeah, that kind of rounds the build off together. And then we could also utilize the increased max stacks and go into all the kill skills here. So I think this is a good one, increasing your gun damage every time you get a kill off and then increasing it. So I'd actually recommend past this, we go with Grave Implements for 5 more levels, target pre-science there to be able to give you a critical hit chance off just normal shots, 15% increase. And then we'll also further stack that up and then go for some more of the kill skills here. Then we can actually take the activating kill skills when critically hitting enemies. So yeah, these will all actually pair together very well. I'd recommend these 4 extra ones past this level here. I feel kind of dumb because I accidentally sold my class mod earlier while I was streaming, but there's one that whenever Vex has her maximum health, her lifesteal will partially apply to shields. And when Vex has maximum shields, it'll give her overshield. So that is the best class mod here for this one. And this can be gathered from Primordial Guardian Radix there. And what that does is just, again, boost up our overall survivability rate quite a bit. You also want to look for skill points in your tree here. Ideally, the ones that we're utilizing the most. So if you can get any of these here boosted up past the 5, like you can get a gun magazine size increase pretty greatly. That makes the build so much more powerful. I would also recommend grabbing a throwing knife. Throwing knives in this game are pretty overpowered. The ones that we want are the ones that spawn a singularity, because we throw a throwing knife, it's going to pull all enemies around, and then we can just shoot at them with Eldritch Blast. Any type of damaging skills are going to be great because we are going to bind those enemies in the air. This is one of the best grenade choices in the game just because of the ability to stop enemies. It won't work on bosses, but if you're going to be able to find a grenade that increases the overall critical hit damage, those are good ones as well. This one here, it doesn't have the critical hit damage, but you can get grenades with that. I would also recommend looking for one that's going to be best for, I would say, Jacob's guns. So the best available gun mods there that you can find for that. Any type of shield really works on this build. You don't really need to go for the overshield ones on this. And again, any type of heals. We want to have, as you see here, we have multiple kinetic weapons. I only have one caustic weapon. I'd recommend having at least one Maloen weapon, especially if you can find one with shock and fire damage. That's going to be most optimal because that'll cover your bases for if you want to have extra types of damage. And then you're going to have your kinetic damage on most of your other weapons here. So ideally, you could have like shock and fire and then have one corrosive weapon and then 2 kinetic weapons. Or one that has kinetic with a elemental swap, so you can pull it out if you need to remove shields or things like that, which is also nice. But yeah, we want to be able to apply that lifesteal, so that's why kinetic weapons are so good. And putting this all together, as mentioned, the grenades are super useful because you can use this to pull them into the air. And then we're going to go in and obviously we don't have the class mod here, but we'd be gaining overshields if we had that class mod. And then we can use our Eldritch Blast here, as mentioned. Whenever you apply this, it's going to chain to multiple enemies there. And then we can go ahead with just being able to recover it by dealing gun damage. So you always, when you have this up, you always want to be shooting away because that's going to allow you to charge up your Eldritch Blast. Or yeah, just absolutely shredding people like that. But yeah, once you activate your Incarnate, you want to just be guns firing and swapping between your guns. You don't want to have any time where you need to reload. You need to constantly be firing it. And when that's on cooldown, that's kind of unfortunate, but the thing is, our grenades are there to hold us over until our cooldowns are over. So you can just go around with throwing knives there, because you see there, it pulls the enemies into the air. And with this type of knife, it has a really fast regeneration rate. It's only like 5 seconds or so. So you constantly will have knives to be able to keep enemies up into the air. And what's funny is that guy there, he's just stood back up. Now he's back up into the air. And then, yeah, see, right below the health bar, there's a little thing that's going down, but it stays up if we have a kinetic based weapon out. So the reason that we want to have a kinetic weapon out pretty much at all times and swap between them is because you have 6 seconds if you pull out an elemental damage weapon like you see here, and it's starting to go right down right beside my shield bar there. So those 6 seconds is when we can do elemental damage but still have lifesteal. So once our Eldritch Blast is off cooldown, we always want to be using this pretty much immediately because it's going to be our best skill for damage, so you don't want to be holding it really that much. But again, there we have those 3 charges, so anytime that you see an enemy there, you can blast them away with that, and it's going to chain around to multiple enemies there, which is just great because you're getting a bunch of your health back there if your health is low. And again, with that other skill tree, you're able to get your overshield. So there it is, a very powerful leveling Incarnate bleed build for VEX in Borderlands 4. If this video is useful, please consider subscribing. Appreciate the support. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next video.